Good morning, everyone. I'm Lori,
Good morning, and I'm Tricia.
and we're here on our weekly podcast to talk about everyday wisdom. And for this year, we've been exploring abundance, and because it's a 2024, the year of abundance, and empowerment, which is the dragon year. 2024 is Wood Dragon. So we've got this really powerful time of this year. And so let's really enjoy it and take advantage of it and bring joy, which is the intention that Tricia and I started with this podcast. And of course, as we talk about, enjoying ourselves and living in our fullest for the intentions of the year, we started to see, or I'll speak for myself, where my energies have been getting diverted or distracted. And one of the big areas that energy can get diverted or distracted is in other people's stuff, for lack of a better word, And so we were looking at the purpose of this conversation is to get clear about what's yours and what's not. What is your energy? What's on your side of the street, and what's on everything else? The what's not mine, because a lot of things we take on that really aren't ours, and it's for a whole bunch of reasons, and we're going to talk about those today. And we're also going to talk about, how to bring yourself back from putting the energy out there and bringing it back into yourself so you are in your most empowered and capable place. Trish, do you want to add anything here?
Well, I guess I just want to bring up the fact that we're going to also talk about the difference between compassion, empathy, and sympathy, and which is part of this too. It's part of this discussion about not taking on other people's stuff, but not disavowing them in the process. So it's honoring them for where they are, but honoring yourself for where you are, which is not in their stuff. But yeah, and I think we should talk too about how to recognize it, because sometimes we get caught and we don't even know we're doing that. Suddenly we were just talking about, suddenly someone's telling me something that they're distressed about, and I'm feeling their distress like it's happening to me, but it's not. And I don't actually offer a lot of support by taking on that distress. So
Right.
yeah. So it's, how do you catch yourself and stop yourself from just getting caught in other people's stuff?
Right. And I think that's really important from an energy perspective, because, we're all, I keep seeing like little umbilical cords that go between us, right? Where we connect to each other. And when we're having a conversation, there's a little umbilical cord that goes out to somebody. And if, and so you're in this energy exchange, so to speak. And so, like you were saying, if you can, and we're empathizers because we're part of an energy field. So you can feel someone's distress or concern or fear. There's so many energies that are created in our world that we can feel. And, I was listening to, I love Abraham Hicks. And one of the things that I keep trying to remind myself and teach myself is that there's that love energy we talked about the last week about love and yes, and it's got our backs, it's got us cradled. And so a lot of times when we're distressed, we've forgotten that love energy that's caressing us, holding us, and really providing that in abundant way. And so, and for, so if you're in a conversation with somebody who's distressed, holding that remembrance of the abundance is a really powerful way not to get sucked in, so to speak, or at least be there. And that's what we're going to talk about. And I think this is a good time for you to, share what you brought with respect to compassion, empathy, sympathy.
Right. But let's start by talking about how we do that, how we get caught in other people's stuff, and how it sneaks up on us so quickly. We were just having a conversation about, I had a phone call yesterday with a friend who's going through some tough stuff, looking for a new place to live in. And I could feel her anxiety so much that I started to experience it myself. And it took me by surprise. And I realized that at that point, I started to disengage from the conversation to not take it on. So I lost the ability to experience compassion for what she was going through in order to not feel it,
Right.
to not feel that anxiety. So, right, there is that distinction too of being able to be there for somebody without taking on their stuff so that you can actually be there for them and offer them encouragement and support.
And when we started, before we started, I was saying how I was traveling this weekend and my husband gets anxiety when he flies. And boy, did I take that on. And I saw myself doing it. And I was, but it was really hard to disengage from it. And like you said, so and then as I was making other travel plans, I was feeling that anxiety again. And it becomes almost unconscious, that experience. I didn't realize how much of it was I was taking on for him because we were traveling together. And the more you care about somebody, or the more engaged you are in their lives, like they live with you, the stakes get higher, it seems like. And so, as always, as soon as you think, oh, we're going to talk about this topic, it comes, the stuff comes available so you can have a conversation about it and get clarity about how it happens and if it's happening, and watching your body's reaction. You might have shortness of breath, you might start to feel a little bit of anxiety. It's really it's really worth noticing, how am I feeling as I'm having this conversation? That really gives you a lot of information about, is it raising your vibration, is it neutral, or is it pulling you down and pulling you in. And that's where, is this mine, is a really good question to ask. Is this mine? And what is mine? What do I own? And what do I let the other person own as a sovereign, divine, creator in and of themselves?
And it takes the willingness to do that investigation, to not just shut down and kind of cut them off, like, I don't want to feel this and I don't want to know this, so I'm just going to cut it here. It takes the willingness to really look at yourself and, like you said, what does this feel like, and is this mine? Do I have this anxiety about traveling? And that when you travel by yourself, you don't.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah. So right. So yeah. So it's by not take on their stuff, but at the same time not shut them down to not take on their stuff. And
Okay.
to do that, honestly, it takes the willingness to do that self-examination piece. What's mine? And how does this really make me feel?
And, when you say, oh, this really isn't mine, I know I can become more present with the person, oh, this isn't mine, it's theirs. And I don't have to fix it. I don't have to solve it. I don't have to, take it on so that they feel like I'm a good friend. It is one of those situations where you could just be there in presence and say, wow, I see how this is going to work out for you, or, be supportive, or, and compassionate without, okay, well, how can I fix this so you can feel better and then I can feel better, which is the key, right? When you feel better, I get to feel better. And that's where this whole asking, is this really mine, puts you back in your sovereignty and back in your personal space, really, and back in your creative energy, because now you're the decider. You're not going for a ride with somebody's, else's stuff.
Right. And that brings me to the actual definition, the difference between compassion and empathy. Empathy is when you join the suffering of someone, you, in other words, you take it on. And compassion, you actually step back away and ask, how can I be helpful? That's the literal definition of the difference between those two things. So encouraging compassion, like, I'm here and I'm listening, but I'm not I'm not going to take on your stuff. I'm just going to be a witness for you and share with you what I see you going with. So that's a big difference.
Huge. It's huge.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
giant thing. And because a lot of times when you're on your spiritual on any path, but we're all empathetic in some ways in that we're all part of the same, an energy soup here, right? This is a creative energy flow thing that we're doing here. And so even the most, let's say closed off person has a little bit of understanding about what's going on vibrationally around them. And of course, the more attuned you get to energy, the more you can feel it. And that's especially why it's really important now to understand if you are an empath or you have that sense of energy, being able to stop yourself and put yourself in a compassion place versus a take on place, that frees up an insane amount of energy, right? For
Oh,
creating.
I have two friends who definitely are empaths. Like, one of them, we could be on the street. She can start talking to somebody she's never met before, and when she's done, she'll tell me what's heavy, weighing heavy on their heart. And but my other friend, who is an empath, she's really aware of that and very much doesn't allow herself, she's got more self protections in place to not take on somebody else's stuff. I can't imagine how challenging that would be, to just be able to read a stranger's feelings. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so their two approaches are very different. My one friend has very few self protections, but the other friend, she's very clear about it. She's very clear that she doesn't want to do that. She wants to meet with compassion rather than empathy. And so she has studied on, how to do those protections for herself. And one of them, according to her, is to not ask a lot of probing questions, but to actually stand back and just let them talk,
Right.
and not
Right.
no lead in, no lead
Right.
in to kind of draw them out or anything, which
Right.
is, so it's really fascinating.
Mhm. And I was thinking, because I was asking myself too, what to do when you find yourself immersed in somebody else's this isn't mine, it is theirs, but I'm in there now, and I'm feeling the discord of that, or what, and you can feel upside too, it's always fun when you're on a joyride together too, and noticing,
Right.
hey, this isn't my joy, and I actually was a friend of mine won a football, they won the state championships for high school football, and I could feel his joy. And I'm like, I'm going to go for a joyride on this, because I could feel how elated he was. And, and I didn't even talk to him. I just put myself in his shoes, and I was like, this is fun, to feel the power and the excitement. So we can go on joy rides as much as sad rides, let's be clear about that. But I was asking myself, if I was on a sad ride, for, what do I do? And I do, I see myself cutting the energy cords if I've put any in, like I've got an investment, or I think I can help, or, fix. I also do the white light shower. You take a shower in white light and let the energies, be soothed by that light, and cleared, clear them and you of any extra stuff that doesn't belong there, so pure empowerment can happen. And of course, seeing them empowered and finding that abundant place. Those are ways we can stand in compassion without being pulled in. Because, like I said, the energy that we invest in all of that is energy that's not available to invest in our creations. You know, the joys that we want to make happen, let's say, or be
That's
available
true.
for.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. So there is a Yoga Sutra, Sutra 1.33. And again, my reference whenever I am talking about the sutras is The Secret of the Yoga Sutra by Pandit Rajmani Tiganaya, PhD. But he talks about how practicing compassion is more subtle and potent than practicing friendship, and it requires greater understanding and skill. The first step is to recognize where our own thoughts and feelings have been hurt. We must explore the scars in our own minds and hearts and heal our own emotional injuries. The pain caused by emotional injuries has a powerful effect on our personality. It disturbs our worldview and forces us to be hypervigilant. Suspicion becomes embedded, and we are constantly on the offensive, quick to hurt others, slow to forgive, and insensitive to the injuries and pain of others. We're drawn to painful thoughts and memories. So again, this self-knowledge, the willingness to know this is mine, this is my stuff, helps provide clarity for what isn't. If we
Yeah.
know if we know our own injuries and wounds, then we know when something is not ours, because I know mine. I know the things that trigger me, and what's triggering you is not mine.
Right, right. And I think that, you know, and I'm so glad we're talking about this because it is information, right? If you do start to feel the discord, let's say, or the whatever of the person, you know, there might be something there for you. You know, is there something about you know, like the housing market that might be, you know, a concern, you know, a historic concern for you, you know, and then remind this is for me, this is what I keep trying to do is remind myself of being in an abundant place, you know, remind myself of the grace that we, you know, swim in every day, because that re-elevates me back to the truth that I feel for life. And so yeah, those that healing, and what you're really sharing it, you know, from Punjit is that it's really an opportunity to get clear.
Exactly, exactly. And in short, what the sutra is telling us is that we should cultivate love for those who are happy, compassion for those who are suffering, which again, compassion, not empathy, joy for those who are virtuous, and equanimity for those who make mistakes. So again, know your
Mm,
own stuff, know yourself as human, and allow the same for them. In other words, allow them to feel their pain, but don't take it on, because then we become that too. And like we're saying, if it's not really my stuff, then I'm unable to really offer compassion to that person, because instead I'm just getting pulled into the quicksand of whatever those emotions are that are pulling the other person down.
right. Totally. I love those four things. I wish you'd say them again around love, compassion, joy,
Yes.
and empathy. Say or equanimity. Say those four again. They were
Yeah.
powerful.
Cultivating love for those who are happy. So, in other words, not resenting someone for being happy. Well, like you did, you let yourself ride that person's
Right.
joy.
Yeah.
Compassion for those who are suffering. And again, compassion means being steadfast in being able to hear them and not being caught in what their pain is. Joy for those who are virtuous, and equanimity for those who make mistakes.
Mm, wow.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. and that really does, you know, if because we are called every day, you know, we're in conversations, we're in community, we're in places where we can take on things, and and I think that I was, as I was preparing for this, I was thinking about the world, and there's so many things I could take on and feel as causes or whatever that aren't mine. You know, they really aren't. And I can send I can send um my energy into the upliftment, but if I could spend my whole life running around, just pouring, good energy down the black holes of certain things. um and so I think, again, we're about conscious creating and consciously investing our energy into that which is, because as we become as whole and full of and vitalized and radiating the light, that's one of the best things we could do for all of life, right?
I agree. And that's very much a yogic concept. Just don't get caught in the battle, but stay in that place of equanimity and compassion, and be that space, be that those virtues, the living definition of those virtues, and not just empty words. And again, I just want to go back to how, when we're with someone who's suffering, we don't support them by getting caught in their suffering and suffering with them.
Right, right.
Right.
I think that's one of the most profound, important lessons of being a human, because at some level you're agreeing with them. And on a divinity place, they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. There is, that's a human agreement. And that's not a divine agreement. And so as you, yeah, take on and become and agree with them, you're almost encouraging a misunderstanding of who they are and where they really come from and what they're really made of.
Right, right. You're almost acknowledging them for being in pain. Well,
Right.
right. Although I may have said that a little screwy, we are acknowledging they're in pain. We're just also acknowledging that they're more than their pain by
Right.
not getting caught in it. Right.
Totally. Right. Of course, we're talking, like you said, the embodiment of these virtues versus the thought of these virtues is very, that's where the work is. That's why we're here, is to practice. It's nice to think about doing yoga, but getting on the mat and doing the practice, that's the opportunity. And then taking yoga off the mat is really the next level, right? I learn to breathe,
Right.
I learn to flow. Now I take that out into the world. When I'm driving in traffic, I learn to breathe, I learn to flow, I learn to do some detachment so that I am not pulled into every traffic jam.
Right. Right. It's that ability of witness consciousness that comes from a full practice of asana, pranayama, and meditation, where I'm observing what's happening, but I'm not getting pulled into it and caught, trapped in it. I'm
Mhm.
able to, yeah, I'm here, and I'm able to observe it, but I'm not attaching to anything.
When as I was practicing or thinking about this, I started to think about a bunch of stuff that's not mine, if from a soul perspective. And from a soul perspective, because we come here and we're taught a lot of things, but um, like scarcity. We're kind of taught scarcity, but that's really not ours as a divine energy, right? We come from an
Right.
abundant place. Judgment, that's an idea that humans have. That's not where we come from. There's no judgment. There's that equanimity. There's an understanding that everything's available and everything is okay as it is. Well-being is where we come from. And these ideas of like aging and sickness and everything, those aren't of our divine nature. Those are of human nature. And so I was really kind of going far out with what is mine, and what isn't. And allowing myself to say, wait a second, a lot of the things that I might have been taught early on really might not even aren't a lot of them aren't really mine.
That's right. A lot of that is ancestral stuff that we take on, or things from our parents that we hear, and we just assume that's it, that's the way it is because we've been hearing it. So again, it makes me keep wanting to come back to this idea of be willing to be the witness of yourself,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
watch where your energy goes, watch where your attention goes, and choose. Do I want to know more about my fragile human scared ego self, or do I want to know more of my divine abundant nurturing self? It always comes back to, if you're willing to do that self-examination piece, then you can choose
Yeah.
where your energy and attention is going. But if we go on automatic pilot, we don't get to choose. We just go where we go.
And it's almost like you go where the predominant energy takes you, and
You do
depending
right.
on, yeah, what's going on in other people's lives or in your household. Yeah.
Right. Right.
It can
I
get.
know I've been hearing a lot lately about, our political environment right now is very, very much distant and at war. And I keep hearing a lot, and maybe I'm drawn to reading it more too, how no matter what's happening out there, even if it's globally prevalent, we still have the ability to detach from that and choose. I'm going to stay with my divinity. I'm going to stay with exploring my divine side more. I'm going to stay with, right, that place of compassion
And peace.
instead of, and yeah, instead of judgment. Even, right, even if it's more than just one individual that we're struggling with, if it's global, we still have the ability to separate ourselves from that and go back to our source.
Totally. And I think that's a really excellent, important point that, we take on the collective consciousness and you feel it, whether even you're thinking about it, it's in the airwaves, it's in the air, right? And so, and oftentimes I say to myself, is this really mine? I'm not a
Mm,
warfare person. So I don't, that's not mine. So really getting clear that that's not mine. And like you said about choosing, I choose peace, I choose love, I choose harmony. And the way I choose harmony is by being in harmony, sitting and watching a bird and allowing myself to harmonize within helps radiate harmony without, right? So it's an
right.
inside job. And then that inside job becomes, what at least what you're radiating. And that gives a little balance to what's energetically going on out there.
Right. And we have, right, in the yogic world, we have a lot of tools for doing that, for coming back and coming back to our true self.
Right. So which one would you pick right now for all this chaos out there?
Oh, well, again, do a little movement, get your body moving, then some breath work, some pranayama, and then a meditation that is personal to you, that you know. I mean, sometimes if you practice a meditation for a long time, just sitting with the thought of that meditation will take you to that place.
Right. I also, yes, I was going to say mantra. The Gayatri mantra is so beautiful. The mantra is, because a lot of people practice mantra. And I love when you do I love your voice when you do mantra. I'm almost feeling like maybe we should wrap with you doing um, your favorite mantra for at least 3 rounds. How do you feel about that?
Sure. I have a mantra I've been doing um, since I started doing it last year. Let me go get it.
Okay.
So, this is a mantra called the Vishvadeva mantra. And for those of you who are Sanskrit scholars, forgive my non scholarly Sanskrit. Um, all right. So, just close your eyes for a moment and let yourself receive it, because mantras are energy and vibration. Om Anubhadraha Kratavo Yantu Vishvato Adabaso Aparitasa Udbidaha Deva No Yata Sadamidvrade Asana Prayuvo Rakshitaro Diwe Diwe Om Anubhadraha Kratavo Yantu Vishvato Adabaso Paritasa Udbidaha Deva No Yata Sadamudvrde Asana Prayuvo Rakshitaro Diwe Diwe Om Anubhadraha Kratavo Yantu Vishvato Adabaso Paritasa Udbidaha Deva No Yata Sadamudvrde Asana Prayuvo Rakshitaro Diwe Diwe Om from every direction, may all the forces that are auspicious and conductive to growth, that help me conduct my life in such a manner that life becomes worship, forces that cannot be subdued or deterred in their willingness to come to my assistance. May all these forces rise up within me with full force and determination, and may they continue nourishing and protecting me day by day.
Mm. Ah, oh, that feels good. Thank you. Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.
May the forces that are always protecting you, may they be felt by you and enjoyed by you. Aho.
Swaha.
Swaha.